Welcome to the July 31st live stream here with me. My name is Wayne Clark, and I'm the very lucky frontman of the World Class Manager team. And it's an absolute delight to be here with you on the last day of July and our very special live stream. If this is the first time that you've joined the live stream, then welcome to you. If you've been here before, welcome back. This is a multi-platform live stream, as we say, so this goes out in a few different places: Facebook, YouTube, X, I think, Instagram, and then also a web link as well. However you've arrived here, and of course LinkedIn, however you've arrived here, thank you very much for being here. And I'm excited today because this is a big one. It's a big topic. I probably say that every single week, right? But they are big topics every single week. But this is a big topic this week, talking about the selection of great people managers. And there's a sort of a double-edged sword we're going to look at. Not double-edged sword. We're going to look at it from two different perspectives, partly the organization and partly the individual, but we're going to get into that in more detail. So again, huge thank you for those of you who are joined in live on the stream. And if you're joining in on the recorded version, which you might see later on, then welcome to the show as well. I'm not a live streamer, by the way. This is not what I do day to day. We run a business and we work with companies all around the world, and we'll share a little bit about what we do. But this is a mechanism. It's a way for us to bring to you, so I guess, our rich insights, best practice tools, and all of the things that we see in our work with lots and lots of different managers and lots of companies. So again, we wanted to create a really rich environment and as interactive as possible. So if you do have any questions to share as we go through, please feel free to jump in and share whatever you want to. One of my colleagues, Rose, is also live on the line with us, so she'll be able to pick up any questions and then put them through to me, and I'll see them the same time that you do as well. So let's try and make this as interactive and as fresh as possible. We've got some additions to the live stream this week, a couple of new additions in terms of the structure. Yes, we do have a giveaway for those of you who are concerned. Oh my God, have they taken away the giveaway? There is the giveaway, which is going to be here, and it's big. As I said, this is the last giveaway was on July 17th, and that was the insane July giveaway. This is the July Madness giveaway. It's absolutely insane. There's going to be a couple of things on offer, which we'll get into, and there'll be a question. So pay attention as we go through this, and we'll get to the question a bit later. I guess the main reason why we wanted to do this, why I really enjoy the opportunity of having this engagement with people that I've never met and also people that we do know, is it gives us an opportunity to help you to build what we call a robust business case for change. So build a robust business case for change, BRB, CFC. What a cool acronym. I need to work on this. BRB, CFC. But, helps you to build a robust business case for change. And why is that important? Well, of course, we've all got senior stakeholders in the organization. If you are a HR professional, if you're a CEO, if you're a CFO, if you lead the L&D function, if you're a HR manager, HR BP, if you're a manager, we've all got important stakeholders to engage with. And sometimes evidence and also best practice can help us in our messaging. So as we go through today, we've got two sets of data. We've got data which I call good, clean data, because that's data that we're picking up from our program, which is based on about 15,500 managers all around the world. So we've got an unbelievably, full data set in terms of great insights that we pick up on our journeys all the time. And then the second part, which is not so clean, actually you could probably call it like dirty data, but it's good data. It's the stuff that we pick up from public sites, like when we poll regularly on LinkedIn. So if you're connected to me and connected to us on LinkedIn, then you're probably polled all the time. But we really appreciate that. And we're going to share some of those insights today. Actually, two quite interesting and contradictory messages, which I thought was quite interesting. So we're going to get into that. But in terms of a roll call, where are you? Where are you at? Please just drop in the chat where you might be from. If you're here from the US, very early if you're from the US, but I think some people had registered from the US. If you're here from Europe, here from Africa, here from the Far East, here from the Middle East, here from Australia. Last time we had people from Australia. So please drop into the chat where you're at. That works, that rhymes, right? And also, again, if you find other people who share content and also share insights in the session, please feel free to connect. We want to make this as enriching for the community of people that we engage with as we can on a regular basis. My goal, and I have an intent, always have an intent for these sessions, is my intent is to make this the best business-focused live show related to management development on LinkedIn, right? So that's a big ambition. And we want to try and get to around 1,000 people registering for each session as we go through the rest of the year. So as they say, if you've got a big goal, put it out there. And we've got a massive goal. And we think that we're warranted in having a massive goal because of the insights that we've got. So again, welcome to this very special live stream, end of the month live stream. And this one is going to be focused on what we call selecting managers. We're going to roll the intro and then we're going to get into it. So welcome if you just joined. As I said at the beginning, one of the things that we focused on a lot is looking at this management development challenge. And the topic of this week is looking at the selection process for managers. And we're going to look at this from two, I think, quite important angles. Oh, Donna's here from Edinburgh. Fantastic place. I don't know if you got the sun, Donna. We've got Helen Murdoch here from the Midlands. I'm in sunny London. I'm actually just behind the BBC building. You can't see it, it's over there, but we've got very sunny blue skies. Very nice. So in terms of our insights, we're constantly picking up insights from all of the managers we work with. We've now worked with over 100,000 managers in more than 50 countries, representing, as far as we know, about 1,000 different organizations of varying sizes. And we work with all organizations from governments to NGOs to stock market listed companies to SMEs to privately owned companies to PE-backed companies, and on and on and on. So, safe to say we've got a ton of experience of looking at this building line management capability challenge. And actually, one of the things that we wanted to drill into specifically on this was looking at the selection challenge around managers. And this is captured in some way in a book which we authored and had published by Kogan Page last year, and we're still in the process of launching this around the world. So the book is called, funnily enough, How to Become a World-Class Manager. And would you believe, in this insane July Madness giveaway, we're going to give away a copy of the book. I'm going to sign it too. Why not? So that's one of the prizes in the giveaway. And this launches in Saudi Arabia in about a month or two. We have a full Arabic version, which is coming out in Saudi Arabia. So very excited for that. So as I mentioned, we're looking at this from two, in a way, different perspectives. You might be thinking about this as I'm sharing some of these insights, some of this data, some of the best practice. And there are 5 big things I wanted to share with you. And of course, one important exam quiz question. So you've got to pay attention a little bit. You might be thinking about this from the organization's perspective. So when we're thinking about selecting great people managers, what might be the things that we're looking out for? Now, of course, we have a very definite view based on everything that we've seen on 5 things, which I think are really important. They might not be the traditional stuff. They might not be put in the same way that you hear or see other things on LinkedIn, but I think they're really valid. They're based on a lot of our evidence and everything that we see all the time. And I think if you were going to try and find a shortcut, the question I get asked a lot is, is there a silver bullet? Is there a quick way to do this? No. But there's a quicker way than most. And I think these 5 things are quite important. Or you also might be looking at this from the individual point of view. So you might be thinking about, how do I put myself in the position where I'm being seen by my manager, by the senior managers, by the directors, by the ExCo, ExCom, SLT, whatever you call the leadership team, as someone who is serious management or leadership potential? What might be some of the things that you're looking at? And I wanted to address this from 2 angles, because again, I don't know where you're coming from. I don't know how you're listening to this. I wanted to make this really relevant for your organization, your team, your department. And I also wanted to make it ultra relevant to you personally as well. And that's the big focus of what we focus on with World Class Manager, in essence of what it's all about. So we like to start with very simple, naive, basic questions. And one of the questions, which I absolutely love, is why would you even want a manager in the first place? Now, I trained originally as an economist, and I was interested in macroeconomics because that's all very cool and sexy global stuff. But I was also really interested in the theory of the firm, of what we called microeconomics. And you look at some of the psychology of the reasons why companies do the things that they do. I was always really interested in it. And one of the, it's not an economics lesson, by the way, I'm sure there's many more qualified people on this than I on the call, but there is something that really stuck out for me, was how does a small company form? So if you really look at it from the most micro of micro, you think about what you call the one-man band. And if you're like me and grew up in the 80s, I'm 48 years old, I've got gray hair, then you would have seen one-man bands. I realized that they've gone, right? So I don't know, maybe we should bring back the one-man bands. But when you think about the one-man band as a very small, ultra small individual person that runs a small company, what happens? The one-man band gets busier. Then at a certain point, of course, you need someone to come in and help you with the work, and you get a manager on board. Of course, when you started the company in the first place as a one-man band, what you would have done is everything would have been about delivery for the client, the customer, whoever you were designed to serve, and ultimately whoever pays the bills. You get busier, you take on more people, and then at some point, and this happens in an organization's evolution, you start to become a little bit removed from the action, because maybe you're not in touch with all the clients as you were, or all the customers as you were before, because there's other people in the organization. So we ask a fundamental question of, in a way, like, why would you want a manager? And it sounds like an idiotic question in a way, but I think it's a really important one for your organization to ask. And building on that question, with another question. We're layering question on question here. So question giveaway is then thinking a bit deeper about what's the manager's role. And the reason why we ask this question is because most of the CEOs I come across, and I love to ask this particular question too, which is if you were to redesign your organization from scratch today, blank sheet of paper, you were given all the capital you needed and given a whole bunch of people that you could hire, then would you choose the type of managers that you currently have in your organization? And what I mean is I'm not talking about technical expertise, because that's given, of course, you need that to run the operation and deliver for the customer. When we think about people managers, when we think about great people managers and the qualities that we probably want our people managers to have in the context of the big challenge for the organization, the macroeconomic headwinds that face the organization, all the issues to do with the competition, to do with the regulators, to do with all of the people, all of the external factors that shape, in a way, the competitiveness or the competitive nature of the organization. When you think about all of that in the whole, and then you think, okay, what really should be the role of the manager going forward? And it's an interesting response from most CEOs. Most CEOs would say to me, no, the role of the manager has evolved over time in a way out of survival. And it is what it is. We're not saying it's good or it's bad. It just is what it is. If you had an opportunity to create the role of the manager from scratch, would it be what it's currently evolved to be? It sounds like a bit of a riddle. And most people will say, no, actually, it probably would be different, given all of the things that we're now concerned about, given all of the generational people issues, given remote working, given all the other things that we're trying to focus on and solve in a modern workplace. So we ask this question to start off with, because when we think about what we would want a great manager for, it starts to give us, in a way, an answer for the type of behaviors, the type of traits, the type of attributes, the type of skills or skill sets or mindsets that we should be looking for as an organization in terms of who should be the important people manager. Now, why is the people manager important? Well, again, we probably don't need to go over this. We're all seasoned professionals. And even if we're not, we're common sense professionals. We understand that the role of the manager has a disproportionate impact in terms of the employee experience. Excuse me. I'm just going to clear my throat. Thinking I should be like sponsored by Gales Coffee. They make great coffee, by the way. I make great cakes too. If Gail's watching this, talk to me, Gales. Yeah, so when we think about this, we know that the role of the manager has a disproportionate impact in terms of the employee experience, day in, day out. If you work for an awesome manager, you could work for, in theory, a rubbish company. You'd love the company. If you work for an awful manager, you could work for the best company on the planet. You're probably not going to enjoy the organization you work for. Why? Well, because, of course, your experience day in, day out is going to be pretty rotten based on your Monday to Friday, if you work Monday to Friday, experience of being at work. So we know that the role of the manager has a disproportionate impact on not just employee engagement. We're not employee engagement fanatics here. We're focused on, yes, engagement is important. Why? Because it drives performance, it drives productivity. Why? It drives the ultimate impact that we're trying to achieve for the organization. Yes, we are concerned with improving shareholder return. Yes, we are improved with, if you're a publicly funded body, then you take taxpayers' money and you want to ensure that you're delivering an exceptional service for the public and its impact. You want a good societal impact. If you're an NGO, you want impact. So all of us are trying to organize ourselves and our human capital in a way that makes the best result for the people that we're ultimately designed to serve as an organization. Didn't breathe. So 5 things I wanted to share with you as we go through this. And as we say, I've got like a pen here, but I've got like no notes, right? So this is all off the cuff stuff. There's my notes. Look at that. That's it. That's as good as we've got. And we wanted to try and share this as clean and as authentic as possible. So 5 things, and I've got a bit of a structure I wanted to share with you. And I think that this is really valuable. As we go through this, I wanted to pepper this with some good, clean data that we've got from the World Class Manager Program. And I'll share with you a little bit of that as we go through. So let's start off. 5 things. Number 1, strategy. Now, when we think about selecting great people managers, and if I was to, based on everything that we've seen, give you 5 things that I would argue would be important for you to look out for, important for you to question potential managers on. Now, we're not saying that we are expecting a new people manager with not that much experience, well, actually no experience of being a manager, to understand and be the strategic genius. What we are looking for is a propensity of people to want to, who have a desire to, learn a bit more about the organization strategy. Now, why is that important? Of course, well, if you think about this, you are the CEO. You have got a challenge to translate your strategy into something meaningful for everyone in the organization. Who helps you do it? Let's assume you've got a few thousand people. Even if you've got a few hundred people, it's still a significant challenge. You need your managers, your people managers, to play a powerful role of helping you to localize and articulate any strategic message into something that feels relevant for the individuals in the teams of the managers. The role of the manager when it comes to disseminating and sharing strategy is key. And I don't know if you've seen any of the stuff we've posted on this, but people often talk about this very famous saying of culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I think managers eat the lot, right? Because you could have the best crafted strategy on the planet, the best articulated, you've put together, spent a fortune on a roadshow campaign. Your managers who you've tried to engage at this roadshow go back to their teams. If the managers go back to the teams and says, what a waste of time, that is it. All of the effort you've put in absolutely killed at point by that manager. So when we think about the role of the manager in articulating, disseminating, and in a way playing like a boosting role on the network as a network node, if it was a phone signal, then the role of the manager becomes ultra important. So again, if you were designing a piece of paper from scratch and saying, right, what are the attributes that we really want for great people managers? We want our managers to be able to have a desire to want to learn about the strategy of the organization. And again, we're not going to get into the types of questions that you might ask at interview, too much detail. I'm sure you've got your own ways of doing that. But I think understanding and having an appreciation for what the strategy might be would be a really important thing. Now, as I said to you, I wanted to share a little bit of data here based on 15,500 managers that we've spoken to as part of our program. And we found out that 42% of managers do not understand the goal, what the goal of the organization is. They do not know. And I think that this is interesting. It's telling, right? Because all of the managers who get put forward to go through our world-class manager program, they're not forced to do it. The organization, we're not forcing anyone to do it. They choose to come forward to do it. These are generally pretty much all organizations who genuinely care about the development and growth of their people. And even in those organizations, which you would argue have got great people cultures, 42% of managers, when we've polled them, have no idea of what the goal of the organization is. Now, we're not saying that the managers necessarily should do. Maybe the leadership team have done a bad job of engaging with the managers to help them to understand it. And when I say bad job, usually bad job looks like lots of blasted messages. What we're trying to do is get managers to involve themselves in a conversation with their teams and start to bring that to life through dialogue and discussion. We've covered this in previous live streams. Maybe we'll get to this at the back end if there's a question related to it. But I think, in terms of the how-to, there's some very important and simple how-tos around this. But I think this is a big area to look at in terms of strategy. So again, in terms of the trait that we're looking for with great managers, absolutely, we should be looking for something related to how our managers want to share, articulate, bring to life strategy. Number two, we got LinkedIn user. Love that point, Wayne. So interesting. As businesses grow, leaders are naturally less connected with the specifics of the business. Managers are brought in to take on that important role. The leader cannot continue with, yet often once they join, the importance of that role is forgotten or seen as less valuable. Absolutely brilliant. Whoever the LinkedIn user is, absolutely great point. Thank you very much. Absolutely agree with you as well. So number two, which is again related to this quite nicely, is around communications. Now, when we think about communications, we're not trying to solve this communications issue. We know that this is a big one. Every organization we've ever been to, pretty much anywhere on the planet, complains about communications as an issue. Internal, external, but let's focus on internal. We complain about communication in the organization. And the main reason is because communication, as we've learned, is 100%, I would argue, subjective. What you believe is improved communications, I may disagree with. Which one of us is correct? Both of us, neither of us, all of us. Right? The reason why, because of course, what I think is improved communications, you could disagree with, vice versa. And we know that everyone is probably correct in this problem. What we've seen are organizations who try to solve this issue, because it comes up time and time again in staff surveys, right? You've seen it in colleague surveys, staff feedback surveys, employee experience surveys, whatever you call them. People will often complain about the quality of communications. What we're interested to hear, though, is do people believe that communications is actually improving or not? Because it's more about the distance traveled. So what we really want people to say is actually, yeah, communications is improving. Why is that important? Because it makes you feel all sorts of things. It makes you feel all sorts of feels. You feel great. You feel connected. You feel valued. You feel like you know what's going on. Of course, most human beings' brains don't cope very well with ambiguity. And if you feel like what's going on around you, you're clearer about, you probably feel safer psychologically. All of these great benefits. Now, in order to improve communication, what I need a line manager who would actually go out of their way to say, Wayne, what do you want to know about? How often? How best can I get that information to you? 3 unbelievably simple questions. What do you want to know about? How often? How can I get that information to you? If the manager solves these 3 things for me and then comes to me and says, Wayne, in a week's time, do you think communications is improving? And I'm like, yeah. Imagine, why would I say yes? Well, of course I'd say yes, because my personal and selfish conditions for improved communications have now been met. Therefore, I say, actually, communications is improving. Now, why is this important? Well, we know from all of the work that we've done, and we've been at this for 20 years, if you feel like the communications is improving in the organization, you feel more favorable towards your manager. Of course, you feel more favorable towards the CEO. Why is that important? Imagine the CEO, point 1, has a strategic message to share. Who is this person? I don't even know who they are. What are they talking about, huh? But when they start to share a message and you trust the messenger because you feel closer and more connected, surprise, surprise, the message gets through a little easier. So we know that the communications issue is huge. We know the solution to it is often unbelievably easy, much easier than organizations in a way go down the route of. And a lot of this has to do with the role of the manager, which is why we come back to, if you were in the selection phase of saying, right, who do we want as a great manager? Let's say number 1, we've got them that they understood or understand, have got a desire to understand the strategy. Awesome. Number 2 is that actually they do seem to want to do a good job of improving communication for the people around them. And again, this is something that people can be trained in because often they don't really understand how important that is. Number 3 is a huge one for us as well. We talk about growth. Now, when we think about growth, yes, we are focused on personal growth, personal development. It's the whole reason our organization exists in the first place. But we're talking about something a little bit wider. And when we think about today's world, given all of the commercial challenges, I'm not going to go into all of that. When we think about the inflation headwinds and all of the other things that we're dealing with as a modern society, there's a whole bunch of stuff that the organization is concerned with, arguably about growth. For most companies, as much as people might not like it, it usually means selling more of that thing. It means doing a better job of delivering that thing. It means improving the perspective of the beneficiary of that thing. We could talk about an NHS trust, which is the healthcare system in the UK if you're not from the UK. We could talk about a housing association. We could talk about a manufacturing company improving supply chain logistics or quality. We could talk about a bank or a law firm, or it doesn't matter, or a public sector organization. Every organization has a desire to do a better job of either the thing that it serves its customers with or its clients with, or the impact that it makes for society based on being publicly funded, right? So when we think about the organization, all organizations need to improve this. And what you probably want, I would imagine, is you want growth-focused managers who seem to actually care about what the organization does and how they may improve the impact of that. So again, we're speaking very broad, very open, based on all of the insights that we see. But I think the growth element is a huge one. Why are people more inclined to focus on the growth of something? Well, they're usually more inclined because there's a selfish interest. We're not saying that people are selfish, but what we are saying is that you probably want to appeal to people's selfish interests, which means that they're probably going to be interested to get involved in other things. I'll illustrate my point here with a bit of good, clean data. We found out that 28.8% of managers, based on the 15,500 that we've surveyed as part of our process, have got a career development plan. 28.8% of managers, which means, do the maths, what's the word, 71.2% of managers don't. So 28.8% is an unbelievably low number. I don't think we were that surprised. And the reason why we're not that surprised, it's not because people are not ambitious because they lack ambition. It's because the quality of a good regular one-to-one, the rigor of those one-to-one conversations in most organizations isn't there. So what I find is I'll talk to maybe the C-suite who report to the CEO or even to a conversation with the chairman and say, when was the last time you had a really good quality conversation about your growth, your development, your future, so on and so on? And they'll often smirk as if to suggest, it doesn't really happen that often. Okay. The more junior we go in the organization, and especially in sort of, I would argue, more blue collar environments, the more I ask that question, the louder the laughter becomes, to the point where in many organizations, I don't even bother asking the question because I know the answer already. So we know that the quality of the conversations people often have is quite poor, which gives us a clue. But again, coming back to the point of today of looking at selecting managers, we probably want to go out of our way to find managers who do seem to be interested with whatever growth might mean for that organization. Again, could be charity, could be NGO, could be stock market listed company where you've got demanding shareholders and analysts on your case every 90 days, or you could be a public funded government organization around the world. So, we know that growth mindset is important. We talk about this a lot, but what we're really thinking about here in terms of selecting great people managers and managers who tend to look like they at least care about growth and understand in a way what that means, which also gives us a way in to think about how we might help managers to understand this stuff. Number 4 is thinking about how do we serve others. Now, the reason why we use this word in our language, we'll often talk about customers. When we talk about customers, this is more about we all serve someone. Everyone serves someone in the organization. And what we definitely know is the people we serve have got a definite view in terms of the quality of the service delivery. What often happens in a large organization is we have large teams of people, of course, who serve other internal teams, or we may have large teams who serve the external customer. Regardless, we all serve someone. And again, what we probably want to focus on in terms of the selection process of a great manager is saying, how do we find someone who tends to genuinely care about the service experience of the person or people that they're going to deliver this service for? Again, it sounds so obvious, but often it's one of those big things that goes missing. And why I know it goes missing is because it's one of the questions we often are asked a lot as an organization. A CEO would say to me, see those guys over there, Wayne? I'm like, yeah, those 50. Yeah, we need to reprogram them. They just don't get it. They don't understand about delivering great. I think, there's no way you're going to do that. Why were they selected in the first place to be a people manager? We go all the way back to the first point when we open this up. They were probably selected on not the right criteria in terms of what the organization needs right now, if it was honest with itself, right? So serving others or delivering a great service, serving customers is a really important element. There's an example I use. It was a story of a very famous architect, a guy called Sir Dennis Lasdun, who was a famous brutalist architect, and he created the building, which is, I'm pointing that way, it's Regent's Park. And as you go into Regent's Park, it's the Royal College of Physicians building. Exquisite, beautiful building. I was never much into architecture before I learned about Sir Dennis Lasdun, but what I found out about his backstory is that before he drew out sketches of the building, you can tell I don't know much about architecture, before he did what he did, he lived and worked with the Royal College of Physicians for about a year and understood how they operated and then built something that was perfectly made for them. And it was a very famous quote. It was a quote in a way that Steve Jobs, God rest his soul, borrowed from Sir Dennis Lasdun later on, which said the job of him was to give his client on time and on cost, not what they dreamed that they wanted, but what they never dreamed that they wanted. And when they got it, it was something that they recognized that they wanted all along. I mean, what an arrogant, beautifully arrogant statement to make. And you can make that sort of statement when you're prepared to live and work with a client for a year before you even begin the process of designing what they wanted designed. I mean, exceptional. But he understood his customers better than they understood themselves. And this is the key, right? This is the trait that we're looking for. Someone who goes out of their way to want to understand what the customer really wants. On the other side, of course, and we're going to get into this with some other data, is if you are seeking to become a manager, to become more senior, going out of your way to understand what the customer, what the client, the end beneficiary wants is a pretty smart way. And usually the data exists for you. Most companies have got some sort of customer feedback data. Often though, we're very bad as an organization at disseminating that and understanding it. So final one is focused on what we would call tomorrow, right, of the 5 points. And I've got a couple of bits of other data here. When we think about tomorrow, how does the manager bring to life a sense of excitement? And the reason why we talk about this very simple word of tomorrow is because, of course, depending unless you're a time traveler, tomorrow doesn't exist yet. The idea of what's going to happen tomorrow is purely an ideal because we're always in the present. But the goal of a great strategy, the goal of a great vision, and this links very much to point number 1, is to be able to bring to life the future in a way that feels exciting. And there's one key word that we focus on, and it's hope. And it's an important word, and it's probably a word that we need more than ever, given all the things that are going on in the world. Hope is a really important element of the culture in an organization. You often feel excited that when you look forward to something, even though the present could be really tough. If you got given today 2 tickets to go to your favorite destination in the world, or for you and your family, or your favorite artist on Saturday with the best seats in the house, probably your life between now on Wednesday and on Saturday would be much more exciting. The reason why is because you're looking forward to something that ultimately doesn't even exist yet. sounds so simple and so basic, but it's the simple premise of a great organizational vision, mission, however you term it. And it's one of the things that I often like to challenge leaders on, because explain to me and ask, if you are the leader, I'm not going to ask you to do it live on the live stream, but think about it. How exciting might that vision be for your average person in the organization, for the general population of people in your organization? We had a guy once, and he's a lovely guy. I'm not going to obviously say about the organization, but he said, and he sort of looks at his feet when he talks to you, which is never that inspiring anyway. But he said, if we could do market growth plus 3%, I think that'd be really exciting for people. And you're like, oh my God, I was bored. He looked bored. Everyone's asleep by the time he's finished it. There is no way that's exciting for people. And the reason why you probably want it to be exciting, not that people are jumping up and high-fiving, but you want to be a real sense of excitement about where this organization's going. And of course, the trick here is to be able to, as a manager, start to thread that all the way back to something that feels relevant, useful for me. That might be a development program. That might be an opportunity to go and spend a week with another department or another team of the organization to broaden my skill set, build my value, help me to grow. Point number 3. So again, 5 key things when we think about this, and we're going to come back to this in terms of a summary at the end. Now, there was something I wanted to share with you in terms of some what I would probably call dirty data.
Welcome to Dirty Data. It's a bit filthy, but we love it.
It's a shocking skit, dirty data. And we say it's dirty data. This is public data that we're picking up from YouTube and also from LinkedIn polls. But we love it because this is the people's view. There was a few interesting things I wanted to get into here. Now, one was, and you got to pay attention because it's going to be an exam question for the competition here. One thing was, I found this fascinating, that when we look at, this was around what's the non-negotiable for a new manager trait. We've got 76% have said empathy. Of course, no one's going to disagree with that. 12% who've said drive, 13% strategic thinking. And this blew me away. Usually I've got a view and a kind of pretty close idea of what comes up on LinkedIn polls. 0%, not one person said the ability to network or networking as a new manager trait. I thought that was fascinating. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is tremendously contradictory because when I polled again on something else, this changed the opinion, I think, of people. But again, 0% in terms of networking. I don't know about you, but I think your ability to build effective networks is probably one of the most important things that you can do, let alone if we were in the sort of primary or tertiary, or primary sector in terms of like agriculture, or even in something like manufacturing secondary sector. In a services economy, in a knowledge-based economy, surely building networks would be a smart thing to do. However, this is what the people said. Bit of data, but empathy came out as number 1. Second thing, which I think was great, and again is showing a bit of contrast to this. So 148 people who voted. I only put this poll up 2 days ago, so a huge thank you to everyone who's taken part in this. But in terms of you're likely to get promoted, so if you think about if your goal is to become more senior in the organization, there are a few interesting things here to think about. So being well networked is seen as a good thing, right? 41%, which goes totally against what we saw in the last poll. Maybe it was a different set of people, we don't know. And then 45% went over and above. So again, if you're looking for a clue here in terms of how do you do that, of course, I think if you were to combine the two of going over and above and, being highly networked would probably be a smart thing to do. The reason why I think this is so spot on is because one of the things, I lecture at a couple of universities, one at Bayes Business School, and I do the International Masters program and also lecture a couple of times a year on the undergraduate program. And I've done the MBA program here and also in the Middle East. One of the interesting things I talk to undergrads specifically about is the dream manager, as I would call it. And I say, when you go into the workplace, there are 2 qualities that I would argue you should look for in this manager that you may work for or work with. 2 things. Number 1 is that they're well networked, because a badly or poorly networked manager, as much as they might be great, is not going to be able to open up development opportunities for you across the organization. Why? Because they just simply don't know the organization. They're poorly networked. And the second thing is that they should at least show some level of interest in your growth, your development, your future. Of course, we all hope that. And as often I like to prepare undergraduates for, it's not always the case, right? So there are 2 key things, but I think this issue to do with, well networked and going over and above is really smart. And then just as the third throw-in question here, before we run this competition, is around the time it takes for someone to feel like we. Now, I had this unbelievable coincidence here. My eldest daughter is 16 years old. She's just started her summer job, and the first time she's ever worked. So she's doing a couple of days a week with an awesome company. And she said to me yesterday, we're in the car, and it was serendipitous because I posted this poll a few days ago. But she said in the car, we don't do things that way. I said, hold on, you've only been there a week and a half. What do you mean we? She's talking about we, like she's part of them. I thought, wow. So the poll that I put up was, how long until you feel part of the organization? I thought this was quite fascinating. So 23% said 3 months, 44% said 6 months, and then 28% a year plus. And I do think this is interesting because if you think about the probation process in most organizations would be around 90 days, in some cases even shorter. And let's face it, even if it's done properly, that probably puts you in the minority of organizations. But 6 months, people would say, about 44% of people said 6 months it would take for you to feel like part of the organization. I just thought that was fascinating. So again, when we're bringing new managers into role, and I think a role change is a significant, if not even in a way more significant than bringing someone from outside into the organization, because as a role change as a frontline member of the team, now you're a manager. If you've been through that process inside of an organization, you will know often how difficult and uncomfortable that can be, because the same people you were with on Friday, you're now essentially managing on Monday. And that can be one of the most difficult transitions to make. Again, once you're into that position, you're into a new community of people and management community. I began in the world of work in, showing my age, of course, well, you know that now, I said I'm 48, in 1998, and I worked for a company called Arthur Andersen, big accountancy firm, then became Deloitte. And when I joined Arthur Andersen, it was one of the things that they were trying to sort of drill into me was to think about, how soon we became and how soon we felt part of the organization. I mean, exceptional job, showing the organization's not around anymore, but exceptional job of doing it. So when we think about this, 5 big things, we're going to sort of just going to recap on that in terms of a summary. But there is this important moment, and we're conscious of time, in terms of this week's giveaway. Unbelievable giveaway. It's the July Madness giveaway. Wow, welcome to the July Madness giveaway. We're giving away a copy of the book, How to Become a World-Class Manager, and a coveted golden mug here in resplendent, beautiful summer gold. Now the question, what percentage takes 6 months to feel like we? What percentage? So answers on a postcard, I'm just joking, obviously, just put it in the chat. And Rose, who is also live on the line with us from the World Class Manager team, will select a winner in a moment. In addition to putting in the answer, what percentage, maybe you could also think about a question you'd like to chuck in, or it might be a comment, or it also might be something that you do in your organization that works really well that you'd like to share with everyone else who's part of the live stream as well. So please feel free to drop that in, and we'll wait a few minutes because I think there's like a 15-second delay between me talking to you and you hearing me. So as a final sort of summary before we get into any Q's and A's, is to really think about the 5 areas that I spoke about in terms of the summary. So number 1, we were talking about strategy. Oh, the winner is in. It's official for the July Madness giveaway. It's insane. A book, signed book, and the golden coveted mug. Actually, we call it the golden mug of managerial excellence, and it can't be given. It can only be bestowed onto the awesome managers and nominated by other managers in organizations, interestingly. So winning this is awesome. So I think we're going to find out who the winner is. Rose is finding someone, selecting someone. So in terms of quick summary, number 1 is looking at, we talked about strategy, right? How do we make sure that if we're going to select a great people manager, we should find someone, ideally, who has got a desire to want to understand the strategy of the organization? Sarah Gould, spot on, perfect answer. And a golden mug of managerial excellence and a signed copy of the World Class Manager book will be on its way to you. Your summer, I feel, Sarah, is now complete. So summary, in terms of the first thing, strategy, really important that we find managers who have got a desire to understand more about the strategy. Second thing is around the communication. Now, remember, what we're not trying to do here is solve the organization's communication challenge, because that's kind of impossible for anyone to solve, really. What we're looking for are great people managers or potential people managers who understand that getting the right information to the right people in the right time frame, in the right mechanism, is an important aspect of the job. And I think just to sort of slot into this, which I missed out as we went through point 2, is actually this is one of the things in the book which Sarah is going to get the opportunity to read. One of the quick stories in the book was a company that I went to work with in the northeast of England, in Leeds, near Leeds. And they've got thousands of people in a contact center. we had a bunch of their managers together who had sort of taken part through the employee survey. And I was asked to go through and talk through some of their employee feedback. So we had 60 managers. One of them was like this outlier in the data who had this exceptional score. And I asked the manager, would you mind standing up? And I asked a really dumb question, right? So if you get to do this, don't ask this question. And the question I asked this really good manager, based on the data that they were an outlier in, was, what do you do that works so well? The challenges I found is most managers and leaders who are exceptional, who do great things day in, day out, because they just do it, can't really tell you why it's great. So bad question, and I got the answer that I probably should have got. And he sort of shrugged his shoulders, and I thought, bad question, Wayne. Right question, better question is, could you talk me through a week in the life of Monday to Friday? What does a week for you and your team look like? And he said, well, I go around the contact center. I go around the contact center pods on a Monday. So I spend most of Monday going around contact center pods, asking them how last week was and sharing with them the targets for this week in terms of call handling, all the metrics they're measuring for a contact center. I said, oh, interesting. So one of the managers put his hand up as I sort of asking this guy and said, oh, so do you only work 4 days a week then? And all of the other, 59 managers burst out laughing. And the guy was like, well, no, I spend 5 days working, but I spend most of Monday. And what they couldn't understand was, how does this guy manage to spend 20% of his time doing that when we can't find any time to do that? And it was a fascinating sort of experience for us observing this. And I asked the CEO afterwards, now, given your other metrics of performance and measures, how is this manager doing versus the other 59? And the CEO said he's beating everyone on everything that we can measure them against. But he spends 20% of his time being human, engaging, questioning, valuing, communicating, all the things I'm talking about here. So the reason why I wanted to share this is because this is part of, as he saw it, the job. The other managers saw that stuff as additional to the job, which is odd, of course, because they're hired as great people managers. Number 3 was looking at growth. So when we talk about growth, it's a bigger version of growth, not just personal growth. We're thinking about, we want to find growth-focused individuals who do seem to care about the growth and development of the organization. Number 4 is looking at service. How do we deliver a great service or experience or product for the people the organization is designed to serve ultimately? And then the final one is, how do we bring tomorrow to life with a sense of hope and a sense of excitement? And one of the questions I would like you, if you find time to ask your team, if you've never already done this, I think it's a really powerful question to ask, is ask people the question, what do you want to be famous for? Sounds a bit like a trite, silly question, but it's a powerful question to ask. What would you want to be famous for? And that could be within the team, that could be within the department, it could be within the organization, could be globally, depends how ambitious they are. But it can often be a really good way in question to start to understand that. So again, 2 different perspectives. If you're hiring managers, not just managers, of course, if you're hiring great people managers and you want great people managers, here are 5 things that I think are important to focus on. This is never going to be an exhaustive exercise, right? And someone said to me, as I'd said in the lead up to this, if management was a science, we've been at this for thousands of years, we'd have an equation for it by now, but we don't. And it's more of an art form, and there are things that we can learn. But based on all of the evidence I've come across and seen, we've worked now with probably 1,000 organizations around the world in 50 countries. Here are 5 things which I think would help you go to great lengths, or to a great degree to be able to solve some of these issues. And then the second, angle of this is thinking about this from the individual perspective. Here are 5 things which I think could really help you in terms of becoming more senior, more quickly in the organization, that would probably get noticed. If you were the CEO, you would definitely want managers focused on these 5 things, or potential managers anyway. So that's it. If we've got some good questions, then we're going to spend a few moments getting into some of those. If you've got some either questions, or you've got some comments, or indeed you've got things that you want to share with the rest of the audience, please feel free. First question coming in. Here we go. I'm seeing this the same time as you. So question from Elsie. Great. Question, what are the biggest mistakes for new people managers? What an awesome question, Elsie. Thank you very much. I would argue biggest mistake for new people managers is probably trying to solve things too quickly and being seen, feeling a pressure to be seen to be able to solve some of these things. So I'll give you a quick story. I was asked by an organization, actually it was the first organization that I properly became a team manager, a people manager in. When I joined, I asked my boss, I said, would you give me the space to give me like 2 to 3 months to be able to solve some of these issues and come up with some ways forward. And he'd said yes. And I spoke to the team and they agreed as well. And it gave me a bit of breathing space. And it was the only reason why I did it is because I'd seen someone else do it. I thought it was a fantastic idea, because always the first time that you're going to be a new manager, a new people manager, is always the first time. You've not got any experience. And you probably feel a tremendous amount of pressure. You'll feel a tremendous amount of imposter syndrome for most people, and try and give yourself some space. And I would argue, if you can't get 2 to 3 months, because that might be too much, try and create like a, 2 to 4 weeks where you could spend some deep analysis of understanding what's going on for the team. And as part of that analysis, I would try, if you've got the size of team that's palatable, I would try and do as many one-to-ones during those 2 to 4 weeks as possible, and just understand which each individual is coming from. People will have worked there, if they've worked there for a long time, will have quite entrenched views of maybe other managers. You're going to be judged by other managers, bad ones and good ones. So you probably want to try and figure out some of that as well as understanding what you're now expected to deliver on. Because the first time I took a step up, as I'm sure most of us did, I had no appreciation for the level of responsibility I've now got to deliver. And I had to go into my first ever management meeting on a Monday morning, and I'd never been into a management meeting before. I had no idea what was coming. I soon learned. So again, I think try and give yourself a little bit of breathing space would be my answer. So awesome question, Elsie. Thank you very, very much. Any other questions from Sarah? What is the best advice and support to provide to new managers? So maybe along what I was sharing with Elsie, Sarah, but I guess if I was to pick something else, I think in module number 11 of our program, it's called Managing Up. And what we talk about in Managing Up is how do we build really effective relationships with other key senior stakeholders. And I think this is something that often new managers don't really understand. And it's something which is really, really important. When I joined Arthur Andersen, my boss, my manager said to me at the time, don't just try and understand my objective, understand my boss's or understand your boss's objective. And I was like, this is some riddle. What are you talking about? But what he meant was understand what I've got to deliver. And he said to me, if you make sure that you help me win, then you're going to win as well, because you're going to have objectives that are linked to that. And I was lucky. I was 22, 23 years old, and I started to understand that actually there's a bigger chain of command here. Everyone are going up this chain have also got, and probably more significant challenges. They've got more at risk. They're paid more money. They're more at fear of losing their jobs, and so on and so on. So I think understanding the key stakeholder relationships at a senior level is a really clever thing to do. That's my best piece of advice, I think, for a new manager. And other question from LinkedIn user, do you see tech AI significantly changing the value of a manager role going forward? Yes, I do. And I think you can bolt on. I mean, we use AI and different versions of AI on a daily basis in our work. I think if you can figure out how to use it effectively, it gives you this unbelievable superpower in the way that you write, in the way that you think, in the way you interact, in the way you're able to interrogate tremendous amounts of data quickly and therefore understand a sense of reality. And I think it should change the role of the manager, and will do, of course. So that's that aspect of it. Could AI replace a manager in an organization? To some extent, of course it will. We know it's going to replace all sorts of roles and all sorts of jobs, and to believe it won't probably means we're delusional. But I think right now where we are with the tools we've got available, even like Chat 4.0 or 4.0, whatever it's called, is so unbelievably powerful, and we use it on a daily basis in our interactions with all of the people in our teams as well. So I'm sure there probably are more questions. If you've got them and I can't see the screen, then what we'll do is I'll make sure that we respond to those questions one-to-one, and we'll come back to you probably this afternoon or tomorrow if we can get the time to do that. A huge thank you for dialing in and being part of this session. I love doing these live streams, bringing them to life. As I said at the beginning, it gives us an opportunity to share some of our insights, best practice, and some of our data as well. The next live stream is going to be on August the 14th, and it's going to be a bit of a different one. We've been asked a lot of questions over the last few months about what is the World Class Manager Program, what's it all about. So I think what we'll probably do is every 3 months, we'll run a special one on the 12 modules of the World Class Manager Program, and it will give you a pretty good idea of what we believe you should focus on when it comes to building a people management development program. So August 14th, I think it's going to be 11 a.m. GMT, but of course we'll share more details. Huge thank you for everyone dialing in, and also look forward to seeing you on the future live stream. Have an awesome rest of the week and enjoy the summer. See you soon.